Welcome back to the Marcus Milioni podcast. I am your host, Marcus Milioni. I am solo today, so figured I would take this time to touch on the subject of entrepreneurship and starting businesses, finance, that type of topic. And before I even get into any of it at all, I did bring notes today. Now, I never really am a big notes person. I kind of like to just go off of memory and try to bring in stories to the way that I explain topics. But I figured a little bit of a layout would help me touch on the things and keep things from getting too scattered. There's still a chance they get scattered, but that's okay. So, for the people that are watching this on YouTube, I just want to make a note that I'm going to be linking an article, not really an article, it's more of a worksheet. I think it's 30 pages. It is a document that was sent to me from an entrepreneur that I had met online. We have known each other for a couple years. We kind of spitball, talk back and forth, random stuff, but it's a very comprehensive document about starting a business. So I'll link that. You guys can look through it. It kind of gives you a roadmap of things you should think about, things you should touch on like when you're in the planning stages, kind of carries you all the way through until you either launch a product or whatever. So, to start, I have this section titled Just Starting. Now, I want to put emphasis on that sentence, the importance of just starting. There's something called analysis paralysis, and in the world of entrepreneurship, I have been a victim of it. Other people I know are going through it. Other people I know have dealt with it before, and not even in entrepreneurship, just in life in general, it can happen. So pretty much what analysis paralysis is, you analyze every situation or new situation and try to account for every possible thing that could go right, every possible thing that could go wrong, and make adjustments accordingly before they even happen. So you are trying to plan, yes, is it a good thing? Yes, but that can often lead to people just not starting at all. You plan, you see how many potential roadblocks are ahead, and then you end up not doing anything because those roadblocks could be very big, but you haven't even driven down the road yet. So who knows if the roadblocks are even there. And this ties into the idea of reading books. I've always been an advocate for reading books, and most of the literature that I read is finance / entrepreneurship / self-help related. I stick to nonfiction type books where I can try to glean something off of the written words. And a lot of people will ask, well, which book made the biggest impact in your journey in business, in entrepreneurship, in your career? And yes, that is important. It is important to have really good books that give you something to refer back to. But reading a ton of books, reading 50 books a year, isn't going to make you a great entrepreneur. It's not going to make you great in business. It can't make you anything, right? Only you can make yourself something. So as many books as I can recommend and as many books as you can read, yes, that's well and good. But at the end of the day, you still have to start. You still have to start somewhere. And the process is different for everybody. What works for me might not work for you. What works for the other person might not work for me. And that's just how this works. I've talked about this exact quote a little bit on social media, but I was told once that, well, actually I wasn't told, I saw or I heard a entrepreneur, extremely successful, talking about putting enough pots on the stove and eventually one of them is going to boil. And this stuck with me because it's like not putting all of your eggs in one basket, especially when you're just starting. You can spread yourself out a bit, spread your time thin, and just work on a bunch of stuff. Move stuff to the front burner that is getting traction, that is getting users, that whatever your product or what you are selling or what you're doing, whatever important metrics are increasing rapidly with that product, just move it to the front burner, start to focus more time on it, put more effort on into it, and shift everything around accordingly. I'm a big fan of this idea because it also keeps my mind fresh. So a problem I might be having with one idea or one project might not be something that I've hit in a project that's going well, and could be something that I end up coming across in the project that's going well, and I can get ahead of it before it ends up wreaking any type of havoc, because I had a problem come up in a project or a business that wasn't as big or wasn't doing as well. So let's talk about the internet. So you have books, yeah, reading books, great. Everything's good. The internet is also, in my eyes, probably the most important resource for me, at least. I've learned more from the internet than I have in any classroom. It pains me to say, because college was expensive, but yeah, you can learn anything on the internet. So what I mean by that, say you are starting a business in a niche, any niche. Let's pick apparel, for example. It's an easy niche. You're starting a business in apparel, specifically women's leggings. So identify your target market and figure out what brands already exist that do similar or kind of that are addressing the market you would also like to address, right? So in doing that, you can pull a lot of important information from watching how they move online and in their online presence. So say you're targeting the same segment as like Alo Yoga or Lululemon. There are plenty of resources online where you can either look up records of how they're importing stuff, who they're manufacturing with, and in some industries this can be helpful, in some it can't, but it's just an example of using the internet as a resource to give yourself an edge. You're always going to be trying to find an edge. So you're studying those brands that have already started to address the market that you want to address, and are figuring out what they do well, what you could potentially do better than them, because at the end of the day, you have your size as an advantage, right? Once you're competing with a very large business, they are not as agile as you. So take what they are doing, what you think you can do better than them, and really work at it and try to use that as a selling point. The internet is also a place where people are extremely comfortable talking, and more importantly, talking about themselves. So what I mean by this is, on forums or social media, oftentimes you can come across people who are from a very are from a very different walk of life, and or are operating in a very different business as you, and you can just freely ask them questions. The beauty of the internet is you can ask. They don't have to answer you, but they can answer you, and sometimes you can grab extremely good information from those people. You can build relationships with these people online. You can network with these people online. Networking being one of the most important things, I think, either in career or entrepreneurship, business, anything in general. So just asking questions. If you don't know something or you're breaking into an industry, find a forum of people that talk about that subject, and don't go right in just straight up asking like, listen, I didn't do my due diligence. It's obvious. How do I do this? Do your due diligence. Ask a question that has to do with your issue, but shows that you did due diligence. It's a way of showing them that you're not lazy. Another really, I've seen this talked about a lot on a lot of different social media channels, and especially within the finance world, like being able to provide value is kind of how you are not judged, but what your worth is kind of determined by. And it makes sense, but it can also be used as just a tool in your toolbook. Like what value do you provide? So to go back to our Lululemon Alo Yoga competitor, fictitious company example, what value can you provide your end customer that those companies can't? Can you source a higher quality product? Can you do so much research on material manufacturing that you find a better way to manufacture leggings and athleisure type wear so that now you are offering a superior product at a relatively same price point? I think that's very important, and it's very important to be able to convey this idea that you possess the knowledge required to be doing the job or starting the business that you want to start. Even if that means you're up all the time just Googling how to do X, which leads you to another rabbit hole of how do I do this? And then it's just like a constant learning of how do I do this? How do I do this? Like, I'll bring this back as a personal example. I started a brand 3-4 years ago now, clothing called A Mother's Love. And going into it, I knew nothing about material sourcing, material manufacturing, and it's something that I had to learn. I didn't go to design school. I didn't go to fashion school. I didn't do any of that, but I just knew that I wanted to try and make clothes from scratch. I didn't want to use blanks. I just wanted to understand the process of making clothing. So I started Googling and came across, the fact that you need a tech pack and the fact that you need patterns made. And without all of this stuff, you really can't manufacture something on to scale. You can create one-off products, but in order to manufacture it, your manufacturer is going to need these documents, especially the tech packs. So I didn't know anything about this. So it was a lot of me just watching YouTube and Googling, how do I learn this? Meeting with a seamstress to understand the way different fabrics are going to not react, but I guess react's the only word I can think of, but react under the different type of machinery, and what you can and can't do, the limitations of the machines. All of this you have to pick up as you go. So you can't jump right in and just start, I want to manufacture this and I'm just going to do it. Because that's how you just end up out a lot of money. And money and capital and financing in the beginning is one of the most important things. Because it's the only way you're going to keep yourself afloat is if you manage your finances well, understand how much working capital you need to stay afloat, and then ultimately drive sales to replenish that working capital. Which brings me into a very important point of, and this is really focused on people who are manufacturing or creating a good that you sell physically. Doesn't apply as much to web-based businesses or like software as a service, SaaS type stuff. Your manufacturers, when you run across them, are going to have something called a minimum order quantities. Now, the biggest and the best manufacturers can demand high minimum order quantities because they either don't feel like working with startups or they know their worth and the small orders aren't worth it for them. Understand that when you buy a ton of product like that, you now have to sell it. I think this is a trap a lot of people fall into is you buy the minimum order quantity. It's a crazy number, crazy outlay of capital. And now you're cash strapped. You have no working capital. And your option is to get these products sold is to either go into debt or start running credit cards up. Whereas you could have found a manufacturer that works with startup brands or startup companies, has lower MOQs, may not be as well known as that main manufacturing facility, but if you're very good with your product specs and what material you need them to use, and you're very clear, most of the time you can get your product made and it will still be of quality good. So the managing of capital might be, in my eyes, one of the most important things to entrepreneurship and finance. It's not something that everybody understands as easily. You can outlay 10 grand on a product that you don't even know if you can sell it. So at the end of the day, your business that you outlaid all this capital for 1,000 pieces of whatever you're making, and somebody else who went with the lesser known manufacturer has working capital to then use to market their products, they'll probably scale faster because you now have no capital to spend on marketing. Now, if you can do marketing at a zero cost type thing, great. But just understand how you need capital in order to continue to. It's like the coal that burns in an old locomotive. You have to keep restocking that. That's with that working capital. There's something in small business lending called the working capital line of credit. I mean, large businesses have them too, but sometimes that's needed because you have to just keep replenishing that. And you don't get your money back that you paid the manufacturer until you sell whatever you had manufactured. So just manage those expenses, manage your outlays of capital, and you should be good for the life cycle. This second part, the second section is to, I have it noted here, to break it down into bite-sized pieces. This is something I think I do relatively well. And what I mean by this is you have to look at the whole picture, but back into what you are trying to achieve, right? So, for example, I want to build the next Amazon, let's say. You start with Amazon and you back into how you get there starting today. Now, Amazon's probably a terrible example for me to pick just because it's so massive and so complex, but there's a lot of issues you can foresee coming if you picture yourself at the end. Like, oh, we handled supply chain issues. Oh, we handled X, Y, and Z. Just back into, like, start at the end and back into where you are now and try to foresee issues and how you're going to overcome them. That goes for even goal setting in life. Say you want to advance your career to a spot down the road that requires 10 moves. Picture yourself there and then back into how are you going to get there and what steps are you going to take to get there. Putting controls in place that help you manage the most pressing tasks right away. This is difficult. I struggle with this because my brain's kind of scattered, as I feel like this podcast is kind of scattered. But being able to address the most important things is important, but not knowing what those important things are is even more important. So you have to have a way that you can easily identify which is the most important task at hand. When I wake up in the morning, sometimes I'll find myself at my computer off doing research for a business that I haven't even officially started yet, but am thinking of starting, when I have emails to manufacturers and suppliers that I need to write. But I'm over here researching like chemical compounds for the sole of a shoe because in my head I'm stuck on an idea of I want to, start X business. So just understanding, putting controls in place that lets you know this task is the top most pressing task you have. Let's fix it. Let's take care of it now so that in your free time, later in the day or on the weekend, you can think about these, smaller pipe dream projects that you have in your brain. Let's see. I have here marketing, sourcing, distribution. So I can talk about these from experience. So I'll just use my experiences in each of these going forward here. So marketing is something that I don't have down to a science at all. I wouldn't even consider myself a very good marketer. I like quality product, and in what I sell and in what I offer, I just want it to be a quality product. I want everything associated with brands or businesses that I start to be automatically known as a quality product, because if I'm not going to use it, if I'm not going to wear it, if I'm not going to put my name on it, I don't want to put it out there for other people to even look at, because it doesn't deserve it at that point. Outside of that, specifically as far as ads go, I don't know anything about ads. I don't know anything about Facebook ads. I don't know anything about Google ads. It is something that I cannot offer you any good advice on. I need to do a ton more research and or talk to a professional. It's not my forte. I'm sorry. Sourcing, I'm pretty good at sourcing. I'm pretty savvy when it comes to finding manufacturers and people that can make product. My most recent endeavor for Minted New York is sourcing 14 karat, 18 karat gold chain manufacturing. And I want to, perfect world, I get it done in America. More perfect world, I get it done in New York City. Don't know if this is even going to be possible, because I've yet to come across a manufacturer in the city itself, and I don't know how price effective I can make it if I go that route, because generally things made in America are more expensive just because our labor is more expensive. So I start to do research on companies in Italy that manufacture 14 karat, 18 karat gold chain. I'm reaching out to them. I'm on their websites. A lot of these websites look like they haven't been updated since 1995, the year I was born. Just, basic HTML websites, all written in Italian. What I presume to be Italian. I can hardly read the websites. I'm like poking around trying to find contact for them. I contact some of these manufacturers. Some of them give me like 3-word answers. Some of them come back to me, and the problem I talked about earlier with you need to buy 300 pounds minimum of chain. And I don't know if any of you know the conversion, but 300 pounds of solid gold is a lot of money. Comes right back into our working capital discussion that we had earlier. I'm not going to outlay 300 pounds times the price of gold in ounces today in gold chain, knowing that I'm going to be sitting on product for a while, and now I have to sell it, and I'm storing a ton of gold in physical form. Like where am I even going to store that? That's a risk. It's a risk I'm also not willing to take. Also, it's probably a bit of my ignorance because the manufacturers I was contacting were large. Like I got these manufacturers from like other large brands, very large brands, because I figured in my head like they're using them to manufacture, they must be a good company. So these minimum orders, I'm not well versed enough in the gold chain manufacturing arena to know if they are reasonable or not, but maybe he was just saying that because he didn't want to work with someone he had no relationship with and knew nothing about my brand, or who knows. But there's me using the lessons that I had learned previously to understand that, a large outlay of capital like that, one, is not worth it. There's inherent risk to buying huge quantities of product like that, not even knowing if they can move. And then you have the risk of, having that on hand, which is also, kind of dangerous. Distribution. This one I don't have as much experience with. When I think of distribution, I think of kind of fulfillment centers and or how you get your product to your end customer. Now, for me and Minted New York specifically, I do ship internationally. Now, I've talked about this before, but on my I charge $7 for international shipping. There's no charge for shipping within the U.S. So I eat the U.S. shipping cost, and I also eat a large portion of the international shipping cost because I don't have the volumes to ship international product the way that these larger businesses do. So larger businesses will have like multiple fulfillment centers across the globe. I mean, they could have multiple within the US, but there's multiple across the globe so that it's much easier for their product to get to international customers if they're a US based company. Having a fulfillment center that fulfills, right from UK or the Middle East, or it just moves from there. That's the starting point. So shipping costs are a lot lower, and ultimately they can charge the customer a lot less. But I am a startup brand, so I'm not going to charge my customers insane amount of money for international shipping when I'm still building a reputation as a brand. So in my way of trying to compete with larger businesses, I'll just eat that cost. That to me is a cost of doing business, and 100% worth it every time, because I want those people in those international countries to experience the product, feel the product, see see the quality that I'm sending out, and also when they think back on it, think like, oh, $7 shipping really wasn't that bad. Sometimes, companies will ask you to pay that within the US. So it's just like trying to find savvy ways to do things. I think with the rise of third-party logistics companies, smaller brands are getting access to these logistical warehouses worldwide. And if that's something that you need, or that's something that is very important to you, and you're at that size of product being sent out regularly, look into that. Third-party logistics, like worldwide shipping, multiple warehouses, they warehouse your product, worldwide, and you might be able to save on some shipping costs at that level. So that's distribution. Let's see. So this excerpt was taken from the packet that I said I am going to link to the YouTube version of this podcast. But I want to read this, and I want to read the 3 stages that come after this, because I think it is extremely important. So a business plan is not a checklist where you address sections one by one. It is a living, breathing document. You are telling a story and bringing a venture to life. It is about a company, not a product or an idea. It's very important that part about the living, breathing document, because especially when you're starting and nothing is figured out, everything is changing nonstop. So this document is changing daily. It could be changing hourly. And if you look at a business plan or a business document as something set in stone, then it's ultimately going to do you worse than it will do you any good. So the 3 stages that this packet lists as far as planning a business, the first being industry. Understand the industry. What are you attacking? Does the industry have like big titans that are controlling, majority of the sales, or is it a smaller niche within an industry that the titans aren't paying attention to that you might be able to disrupt? Just when I think of this industry, I think of find holes or gaps in the market that you might be able to fill with your product. The company, concept, products, all 3 of these go together. So you have your company, how are you going to market what the overall brand that you're selling your product under is? How are you going to market what the product is? And how is the product a reflection of that company? The market and the economics are the last part of this first kind of stage, is what they call it. The economics being what I talked about earlier, managing working capital, managing your finances, the finances and the working capital, and just making sure you're not taking on unnecessary debt, doing unnecessary things. Like a lot of times when you're starting out, you see a lot of things that larger brands are doing, like, oh, but I need this type of packaging, or I need to go with the super expensive like X, Y, and Z, but it's ultimately not worth the cost that goes into it. Sometimes sometimes it can be worth it, but you can run into a lot of small costs that add up if you try to just do too much. Don't do too much. Just stick to getting the product out there and getting it made and getting it into the people's hands in which you want it to be in. The second stage being marketing, design, development, operations, and management. Marketing, like I said, it's tough. Like, marketing is a skill that I wish I was better at, because it's a lot of like human nature type stuff. It's a lot of understanding what buyers are looking for, understanding who your end customer is, and crafting, formulating a plan to get your product in front of them, and not only get it in front of them, but get them to buy it. And it's not something I'm extremely well versed in. I'm learning daily. And I think the best way to learn is to be selling something. Design, development, operations, and management. This is all kind of the I consider like the middle back office type stuff. Operations and management, like there isn't a lot of management in my day-to-day stuff because I just do I'm the only person that makes all the decisions. And development and operations, like I said, if you're a solo founder, you're just doing it yourself. When the day comes and you have to hire people or hire management staff, then you cross that bridge. But it's not even something I can talk to because I'm just a solo founder. Third, and one of the third, the main third point is what can go wrong. How are you assessing your risks? And this goes back to what I talked about earlier of backing into where you are now from where you want to be. I think you can address a lot of risks, unforeseeable risks, and you can address things before they happen, but don't let it become analysis paralysis, how we started this show. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the final point being success. Like, what is success to you? What is, say you start your business, your fictitious Lululemon competitor, what would success be? Is it a monetary value? Is it a profit goal? Is it a revenue goal? Is it you ship X packages per month? Like, how are you going to measure this success? And I don't think you really even need to have a concrete answer here, because at the end of the day, I can't even tell you what I would be considered or what I would consider success, because it's one of those things that's just constantly moving. Like, how am I going to measure success? Like, do I have goals along the way? Yes. Today we hit one of my small intermediate goals that I had set up for myself, but you hit it and then my mind's just like, all right, like the next one, like what's a little bit bigger? What's a little bit more? Like, how can we continue to grow this? So I guess success for me is to continue to scale, continue to grow everything that I've got my hands in, and see where it goes. Because it's tough. Look at that. Like, I don't know how like, what is success? I don't think you can make it a monetary number. I don't think you can make it a number on anything, because once you get there, it's just like, okay, what's next? You either, get sad about hitting it, or you just move it a little bit further. And that's what I do, is I just move it. So that's my spiel on entrepreneurship and business. I did ask if anybody had questions on Instagram, and people did submit questions. So I'd like to run through some of them. I grabbed some of them before I came in here. Hold on. And the first question on the ballot: how do you decipher when someone is giving you a useful lesson versus them blowing smoke? This was submitted by Beyond How We Feel. I think I'm still learning about this. I've been fortunate that I haven't had a whole lot of people just trying to blow smoke all the time around me. I attribute that to the way I craft my circle of people that I am in direct contact with. I attribute that to me being introverted in a way, because I'm not out there trying to peacock or attract a ton of people. I don't want a ton of friends. Like, that's just not who I am. So for me, I'm a bit insulated from that problem. But I read a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's a book that kind of breaks down how to read people, read body language, read the way they're, speaking their words. And over time, I think you can pick up on when people are not insincere, when people have ulterior motives. Use your gut. Rely on your gut. And at the end of the day, if your gut's wrong, but you still went with your gut and had to, remove that person from your life, or, step out of the situation, and your gut was wrong and the person ended up coming back and you found out that you were wrong, then so be it. Like, it happens. But majority of the time, your gut is going to be right. Second question. My opinion. You want to know my opinion on the best social media platform to market a private-owned business? This is from Carrington Keys, I believe. I guess it's a tough question to answer because I don't know what private business you are talking about, but it would have to be whichever platform your end customer would be on, I would say. It's tough because if it's like a construction business, or you're like a general contractor, your end customer might not be on any social media. So it might be better to, get on the phone and just start dialing numbers, or get out to see them in person, or, so, I mean, social media is powerful, yes, but I don't think it's the end all be all. At the end of the day, you have to understand, who is your customer, who is going to be paying for your product, and how can you reach them? If it's, calling them up on the phone and asking if they have 5 minutes of time to talk about XYZ, what you can offer them, how it can benefit them, how ultimately you can make them more money, then it might just be a phone call. So it's tough to answer. Casey Keinert, I think. I might be pronouncing your name wrong. Wants to know maximizing the resources that you have. I touched on books and I touched on the internet at the beginning of this episode, but books and the internet are extremely important. I would say if you're just looking for straight resources on how to start a business, or if you're looking for resources on how to start a business, get on the internet, find the businesses that are selling your product to your target customer online, and study them. Figure out what they are doing well, how you can differentiate yourself from them, and how ultimately you can improve upon their product. Use you being agile as an advantage. That would be my best advice. But the internet is going to, most of the time you can find what you're looking for on the internet. If you need super specific niche knowledge, I don't know what to tell you, but maybe like a local college library, or a mentor. Maybe you have a mentor that might have life experience, but the internet, I'm telling you, has all the resources that you need on it. Kirsten Saul asks, am I naturally driven, or do I work harder to find motivation? Oy. It's tough to answer because I just feel like I've always been like this. I would say I'm naturally driven, but driven from just a fear of inadequacy. Like, I don't want to be inadequate. I don't want to squander any potential opportunity. I just want to, quote unquote, make it. And I'm just going to do what I have to do to get there. I don't even know where there is, but I just know it's just constantly striving for better, constantly striving for more. And that journey is what's going to hopefully lead me down the right path. Am I looking to scale Minted New York? I don't know how to pronounce your name, but it looks like Pilu Jones. Yeah, I would love to. I would love to scale Minted New York. Minted kind of was birthed out of the idea that I had. I'd always loved jewelry, and I always wore jewelry, necklaces especially. And I was making TikToks, about a month and a half, 2 months in, repeatedly being asked where I got my necklaces. And so they were necklaces that I had made with a silver wholesaler in the city. And I didn't even know if it'd be possible to scale it outside of, one set for myself, one set for my brother. So I didn't know if that was even going to be scalable. So we've scaled from there to now not using that supplier anymore because we needed to source bigger supplier overseas in Thailand and in Italy. And yeah, we have scaled. Now, would I like to take it up a notch? I don't know if I need to scale like my manufacturer or supplier anymore. I think they have the volume capability. But would I like to scale revenue numbers and reach and stuff like that? Certainly. Would I like to make more products? Yes. Would I like to make more like design driven products? Like I like the simplicity of the wishbone pendant. Like I would like to do more simplistic type pendants like this that you can just layer over things. But this all takes time, and yeah, I don't in the way of scaling like by manufacturer and supplier, I don't believe I have to do that anytime soon, as their capabilities are very large. I'm actually a pretty small player on their list, so but scaling as far as revenue and reach, sure. Yeah, I would love to. I think I offer an extremely high product for the price point, and I'm going to keep it that way. Like I will never sacrifice quality for better margins or anything like that. Like quality is my number one thing. If I'm not going to wear it, if I'm not going to use it, I don't want to offer it to people. I don't even want to be seen associated with it. Okay. Look at that. We are live on TikTok, and I did see that somebody submitted a question, so I will look at these questions real quick to see if they pertain to what we were just talking about. Sutton Zach asked, what does making it mean to you? I talked on that a bit. It's really, I don't know. I can't put a monetary number on it. I don't know. The best I can describe what making it means to me is I am not working anymore day to day, and I have enough capital that I can spend it freely trying to help as many people as I can without thinking about it. That's, I guess, that's the best I can put into words. Evan Curry 56 asks, what advice do you have for business failure? Listen, the best lesson about failure and business that I was taught is to fail fast. So start fast, fail fast, right? Do what you have to do to try to, don't make bad products and try to put them on the market. Like do it the right way, but fail fast. Like if the business is going to fail fast, move on. Get back up, brush yourself off, and more importantly, go back and figure out what went wrong here. What could I have done a bit better to have ensured that it didn't fail, and do that the next time. It might take a string of failures to get it right, but you're never going to get to the one that got it right if you didn't go through the failures, getting up, dusting off, starting again. Like, don't be worried about failure. I always say, I'm always telling my brother, like, fail fast. Like, if I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail fast, but I'm just going to go at it 100 miles an hour, and I'm not going to slow down. And if I fall flat on my face, I just get up and do it again. That's what I think entrepreneurship is, and that's what I think starting a business is. And on that note, I'm going to end the podcast. Take care, guys.